as we traveled over there, before the filming happened, I got COVID. So then we had to isolate in a room for 2 weeks. Like on the, all I saw was like just on the edge of the desert, just the road going off into the distance. And it didn't affect me too, like the first week I didn't feel too great, but the second week I was just kind of a bit bored and depressed sitting in this room all the time. But I started composing that track there, and you know, we've all felt it a little bit in lockdown, where it's that sense of repetition, and I don't really like repetition in real life, but I quite like it in music. And so it was just trying to capture that. You know, when you're on your own and you're isolated, some people will find it, but a lot of people don't want to get out of that situation. And that was just about you thinking about people you want to spend the time with, your friends, family, you know, your lover or whoever it may be. But it was that sense of kind of longing, and which was what that was about, really.
Yeah. What about Milk? That's another beautiful piece.
Yeah. That was that was part of that, the limitless sweet love of precious suffering. That was again, that was about that those abandoned spaces and trying to put some emotion into that. So that was in a way that was the idea of that that song and that album, was trying to get this kind of because it's got a lot of there's some violin there, there's got a lot of classical instruments, but they're all mutated and morphed. So it was that idea of trying to take the field recordings from these abandoned places and give it some, and transform it in something that had some life, that had some kind of emotion. And so some of the titles you just pick them out of the ether. It was probably called Milk because I had a baby around that point, so that was
that was really
going on. Yeah,
and of course, you know, Palace, which is a classic now, right? So
yeah.
How you put that together, man? Oh, that's beautiful, man.
Oh, thank
you.
You
Remember when you start composing stuff, and how long?
That I do remember that. Yeah, that song did stand out, and then so I wrote the structure of it, and then I worked with a violinist called Susie Walsh, and she's really amazingly talented. We just worked through the song, and she kind of got what we were trying to communicate with that song, and it is about a kind of feeling. I think, you know, with music, it's like it is instinctive, and just as it all started to you know melt together, it just felt right, and it happened quite quickly. It was and then we produced the film as well, and so it happened quick. But yeah, that's the kind of song which usually when people listen to music they gravitate towards.
And then I also I saw the clip, the short film that you sent me with I think with Daniel Ward.
Yeah.
And it's now of course I know the music is very good, but the way you filmed that and the cinematography was very, very well done. I mean, it's very good quality stuff. I'm detail oriented, right? So like you, so I look for different things, and it came together, man.
Thanks. Yeah, it was again to do. You know, London at night is like quite a particular. We explored it in isolation a bit as well. It's a strange. I mean, even we shot that in just after the second lockdown that's just before the second lockdown. But it's, you know, usually the places we shot at, that there's you know, it's a bit like New York. There's all these different kind of lives going on, and it's kind of it's quite kaleidoscopic maelstrom of different lives. But because it was lockdown, there was hardly anyone around. So when the idea was like it was going to be like street photography, and we were going to film with this actor and put him in all these real situations. But because it was, you know, in the middle of the pandemic, there was hardly anyone on the street, so it kind of made it a different feeling. It made it a little bit more lonely. But because it's like about a paramedic and that decompression after the shift, it kind of made it a bit more poignant in a way. But yeah, we were really, you know, we had a great cinematographer, guy called David Proctor, who shot that. So again, that was something that came about quite quickly, but we were kind of really happy with how it turned out.
And that made it to the clip make it to a film, right? It's a film out there. Have been shown the film, not yet, or not?
No, I mean we did. We are developing something which is a longer form, which is kind of inspired by that, which may be a TV series. So we're still kind of, which is based on a book. So that's like in the early. So that kind of helped get the rights to the book, but that's still in like early stages.
Yeah, and then for you in general terms, is it difficult to make a living out of being participating in film score and photography and kind of films, independent film? Is it difficult to?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not definitely not easy, and it is. There are periods when sometimes you're just trying to develop a new project, but I think the pandemic has made it a lot. I mean, it's just harder to shoot, full stop. So it's made it harder. So and what it's interesting to see what cinema's going to turn into post the pandemic. Is cinema's going to be around? I'm sure they will be, but yeah, independent film, especially in England, there's this small group of people who say yes or no, and if you don't get it past them, then it's very hard. Our first feature film that was funded through Italy, through the Venice Film Festival, even though it was all set in the UK. But I mean, the kind of beautiful thing that now you like something like Palace, you can make a film which has certain qualities, and it doesn't feel low budget, but you can make it for low budget. So there is a certain freedom with like the technology that's around now that gives you a liberation. But yeah, it's a kind of struggle. But I think if you're doing anything that's slightly new or slightly away from the mainstream, it's kind of always been that way. So you kind of accept that. But yeah, sometimes it's hard. But I think when you make something like that or something like these albums, when it does come together, there is such an elation at the end that it's worth it in the end.
Looking back in your life, and especially last year now with the pandemic, a year or so, have you ever thought about, man, I better switch career, go back to school, pick another field, or how you?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes daily you have that kind of thought, but I think I remember in our school, we were quite young, we were about 8, and the headmaster told this story, and it's kind of a coming of age story. I think it's Doris Lessing wrote it. It's called The Tunnel, and it's about this. It's like a little cove. I think it's set in Italy, and there's these kids about 14. This boy who must be about 11 or 12 sees these kids swimming, and they suddenly disappear, and they suddenly come back, and they found a little underwater tunnel, and they're swimming, and they're bigger than this kid, and so they swim through, and then they try and peer pressure this kid into doing it, and he doesn't want to do it, and then he does it. And I remember that it was like quite terrifying thing that this teacher was telling, and also we didn't really understand the themes of it or the idea. But this kid's swimming through the tunnel, and his nose starts bleeding as he gets too far in, but he gets to the other side, and it's like a metaphor for he becomes an adult at that point. And I think that there is a certain degree to that where like you're halfway down the tunnel. It's even more painful to go all the way back, so you just have to keep swimming, and then hopefully you come out into the bay. But I think, yeah, there are days, and I've heard people who are very established and successful, and they still have those days where you think, I should have done something that's a little bit more fits in with it. If you serve capitalist, if you serve and just don't put your head above the parapet and just play along, you'll be all right. But if you try and push against that, it's a little bit harder. But I think once you've decided that, you've got to keep on going, really.
Yeah, and in some cases, some people don't have any choice, right? So either for you, in your case, right, music, find you. It wasn't the other way around, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Even if I chose not to do these things and I just did a, had a 9 to 5 job, I would still be doing,
That's right. Yeah.
I'd still be making this music and making these films. It'd just be on a smaller scale and then have less time to do it. But it's still, um, that would still, still happen.
Like for me with music, right? I'm an engineer, right? As I mentioned before, I don't do for live, but I couldn't live without music, right? So uh, I have, in the sense, quote unquote, have no choice. I got to do it. I want to do it, and put on the radio there for people to listen good music, interview with people, great musicians like yourself, and so on. It gave me a lot of satisfaction, right? I don't make any money, but I got my other job that I do okay. So
Yeah, that's good. And have you just found in lockdown, has your listening habits changed at all? Have you listened to stuff you didn't listen to before? Is it?
it's the same. I have always been so, I don't know, in the pop, right? So uh, I don't know, Genesis, Pink Floyd, Depeche Mode, Coldplay, Pat Benatar, Blondie, blah blah blah, and all the electronic music guys and all the jazz rock and stuff. I listen to the same. I'm always looking for new artists. So on the good thing for me about Spotify, I'm always looking for new people, looking for new people. So I'm always uh, I'm going, when I find an artist in Spotify, obviously I want to buy the music and I will send an email to see if I can interview them. I go to Bandcamp, recommend me stuff. That's what I came across your stuff. So I'm always looking for new artists, right? Uh, and uh, and music give me a lot of satisfaction. So it's I have no choice. I need to do this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Uh, what, and I have interviewed so many good artists and a lot of music that nobody knows, very few
Yeah.
people know, like the Palace. That's a
Yeah.
masterpiece. Why in the world, man? We cannot put in the BBC radio, of course. Yes.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. I mean, and that's what, I miss seeing. There's a great venue in Dalston called Cafe Otto, and I miss seeing my friends because that's where also I find a lot of, I've got a lot of great friends that find these smaller artists you never would have heard of before, and it's and going to like there used to be a music festival called All Tomorrow's Parties, which would be one artist would create it and they would select a bunch of different artists, and I've seen some amazing people at those, people like someone like Dizzy Rascal is obviously massive now, but he was playing there before he was kind of that big, and just a lot of Ortekra and a lot of Warp people is like a lot of amazing stuff which you wouldn't necessarily have heard about if you weren't out in the kind of world. But I mean that is a good thing about Spotify. It does, the algorithms of it does pull you into some stuff you might have not heard of before.
Absolutely. Are you working in a new album at this moment?
Yeah, so I've nearly kind of trying to collaborate with some people I did on the soundtracks. So it's a slightly bigger ensemble, but there's a new album which hopefully we're going to finish in the next couple of months. And at the moment it's going to be called Sadness Be Damned. That's the kind of that's the title. And yeah, they've got about 6 or 7 tracks for that, and feeling good about that. We've got an amazing new celloist who's played some really beautiful stuff on there. So yeah, hopefully the next couple of months we're talking to a couple of different people as well who might be able to get it out to a bigger audience, which will be exciting.
Yeah, well, you need to keep me posted, man.
Yeah.
What are your plans for the near future? Are you hopefully doing some, when the pandemic is over and things open up? Are you going to do some gigs, some touring within
Yeah,
the UK as well?
we're hoping to do some gigs, and I might, we're kind of hoping to spend some time in working in Europe, my partner, she might be she's a writer, so she might be doing some work in Europe. So hopefully going out to places like Berlin and Lisbon to do some shows as well. And yeah, we're really eager to, because all this music's never been played live at all. It's all been released within the pandemic, so it'd be kind of really interesting to get it out there. And obviously we'd love to play in the States as well. So it's we're looking forward to that.
That would be good, man. Where our listener can buy your music?
So if they Blessed Are the Hearts That Bend, if you put that into Google, you can buy it. Bandcamp's the best place, but you can also bet it from Apple Music and Spotify. Places, yeah.
Well, it has been a pleasure, Luke, man. I love your work. Continue working hard, no matter pandemic, no pandemic, this or that. That's your path, man, and you need to, stay positive, man. Don't worry about ignore the whole world and just continue doing your stuff. And eventually, somebody, a famous person or a radio or record label will listen to the stuff and they will open up more doors.
No, thanks, man. I appreciate chatting to you.
Your stuff is good, man. There's no question about it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You need to be more.
Thanks for having me on.
What do you like? Football, soccer, that we call it here in America?
I do. The team I support are called Southend. So they're like a very small team.
Yeah,
there's not much glory in that. That was like in the small town. It's like a seaside town where I grew up. So they were like a team that was so small you could shout out insults, and the players would hear you. So so there's that. But I haven't. The thing is about football is that if you get too into it, the defeats, they like affect your, the mentality. So I try not to. But I do. If I see a game, I do enjoy watching them. But Washington is is there a team that you follow?
Yeah, well, no, the league here in the United States is not as good as the European league. So I like in the UK, I like Manchester City more than anything else.
Okay, yeah.
Manchester City, I love it because I like the guy who is running the thing.
Yeah.
And the previous manager was a guy from Chile.
Oh yeah, well.
A couple, Manuel Pellegrini some years ago,
yeah.
And the guy is very, very good. So I like Manchester City, but it's very unfair because it's the same as in Spain. Either it's Barcelona or Real Madrid, right? If the owners are rich, right, they can hire the best players out there at any cost, right? And then the smaller teams cannot compete with them. So it's.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of money that's been put into Manchester City is like insane.
Billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
And Manchester United the same,
Yeah. And the Manchester United thing was because they put a lot of money into their youth team. So for a long time, even though they had big money and they could buy some of those players, they also had a lot of those players were coming through their youth team. So it did feel a bit more organic. But yeah, there is. I mean, the good thing about like Manchester United has got Marcus Rashford. He's now, I think, before there's a long history of like football players not engaging with social issues, and he's a really great young player that's actually engaging with like social issues now. So there's that like a younger football player, because there's food banks in England because a lot of families can't afford to eat. So I think it's kind of it's quite good that like football, and especially since the pandemic, it's like engaging with real stuff as well as like the game they play.
You mentioned food banks are still a lot of people suffering. I mean, it's difficult for the economy to start picking up again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they were even pre-pandemic. They were on there was a film called with someone an actor called Hayley, and she was in our film, and it's about being she's a young mother, and it's about using food banks and the right they're used a lot, which is disturbing in a country that's this kind of wealthy. But yeah, I think during the pandemic that they've gone up a bit. So, but yeah, these are the kind of, I mean, a way that all the key workers and all the people that help keep the country going were all the people that the Conservative government historically neglected, and that's the kind of bitter irony of the situation. So there's a lot of, my brother's a nurse, and he saw a lot. The NHS here is the national
health system
is like being really celebrated, obviously, because there's some helping so many people, especially at this time. But for so long there were so many cuts that now all the pressures they're feeling are the consequences of those previous, the austerity cuts. And so yeah, there's a lot of hopefully there'll be a lot of change, because it's highlighted the need for that. And I think in the country a little bit people took the NHS for granted. I'm hoping that won't, for a long time, that won't be the case.
And it's a in society in the UK, and well, in London in particular, is it to make it into the world if you are a young kid, right? Is schooling the only way to make it, or people don't
what had in particular
make it into the world? I mean, if you are like a middle class in somewhere in London, parents push the kids to go to college as that is the only way to make it into the world, or
no. I mean, I think that it's opening up a little bit, but we were like one of the last generations to not pay university fees. And I think we're from like working class, half middle class kind of background, but our families wouldn't be able to afford to put us through university. So I think unless you're kind of middle upper class, you can't really afford. I mean, there are grants for lower income families, but I think it's quite hard that you're going to go to university and for like the first 10 years you're going to be in like huge debt. So I think that is it's a bit of a problem, and it's ever since the kind of because you used to have your fees paid for, but that's not true anymore. So that has kind of, there is a certain kind of elite to going to university, which is it's not good.
Yeah, people take student loans, right? To hopefully picking a good career, and then they need to pay the stuff back, which in many ways the only way to make it, right? If you don't have enough money, you have no choice.
Yeah, and I think you don't always like learn the most from university, but I think it's also the interaction and that time. If you just talking on the artistic approach, like that time to experiment and to kind of like find some kind of voice is quite important. There's one idea that in a way a conservative government doesn't really want loads of people going to university, because loads of people going to universities, people thinking out of the system a little bit, and they prefer people to fit into it. So there's that idea, which I kind of do sympathize with it.
And on the other hand, the people that they don't go to school and kind of middle class, the wages associated with, I don't know, construction work, they're decent. I mean, what's people can get like £20 an hour or equivalent.
Yeah, I mean the 0 hours, all those kind of contracts aren't good if you're just doing stuff maybe while you're at university. I think you can probably get paid. The problem is somewhere like London, it's so expensive. So it's like cheap. When I moved there, a long time ago now, 15 or so, even more years ago, you could get a small room and it would be, but now it's so expensive. So I think a lot of people who are like 20 aren't living they're moving to Birmingham or Sheffield. And the pandemic as well, there's a bit of it's slightly overblown the press, but a bit of an exodus from London. So I think it'll be interesting to see how London, which has always been like the hub of finance and like culture in the UK and opportunity, how that changes, and it is ridiculously expensive, where you can't really, you know, it's only really the really well-off kids that can go and do an internship at a media company or you know, magazine or whatever, and live at home in the suburb. And if you're like a kid, even from like kind of fairly middle affluent, it's quite hard, you know. It's only those really affluent. So I think the job situation is, yeah, I mean, it's quite kind of scary, but hopefully I think things will pick up. It's just, yeah, I think London won't be the same if it's been since this plague.
Yeah, here in the United States, it's a lot easier. You know, if you are a bright kid, poor, you study for free, right? If you are rich kids, well, your parents can do, you know, pay for your schooling fees, but there's a lot of mobility here.
Yeah,
You can start from here and then get here in society, whatever that means. You know,
yeah,
it's more opportunities, more way to make it, and uh, you know, there are good school, bad school, so for you need to pick where you want to study, and pick a field that is rewarded, and where you can, you know, where you can make money out of it. But it's more opportunity here in the United States. So,
I mean, I think in England, the schools, I don't know about universities so much, because they're kind of away from that period in my life. But I think schools do seem to be, I mean, the pressure on schools to do exams is greater, but I think schools do seem to be better than when I went to school in the 80s and 90s, because I think they do think about the kids' mental health a lot more. Well, that wasn't even like when I was a kid, that wasn't even, you know, they didn't think about designing the school so light came in, so you felt more at ease. And I think those things, again, like my brother, who he's a nurse, but he does a lot of community stuff with kids. From hearing what he says, it is a lot better, even though there are more problems with the digital world that people live in, problems that way. But I think that has improved. So there, yeah, it's up and down existence, you know.
yeah, all right, man. Well, then again, Luke, was very nice talking to you. Good luck to you. Stay in touch, man. And then definitely I will send you an email. Keep me posted with your new work, and then, you know, send me an email with some artists that you recommend me to check out as well, so I can bring it over.
Yeah, I will.
To the radio, and then people can benefit from stuff. Okay, man. Take it easy, man. Good luck to you, man. Stay safe, man. Take it easy, man. Thank you.